everybody, it's me, the Kadoozie. And here we are, another installation of the Kadoozie Kast. And today, I have the very talented Mr. Lee Clower. Hello, Lee.
Hi, Sue.
This is how we do it. We just start talking and then we figure out where we go from here because, I don't know, that's how I do it. That's how I roam. So, Lee is a photographer, an awesome photographer, but like I usually do, I like to start from the beginning to find out he wasn't born with a camera in his hand. Where were you born?
Born in Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, you do have a little bit of a southern accent, right?
I do.
Does everybody from Atlanta have southern accents? I feel like it's more of like a metropolitan area, city, but no, I guess it's...
No, I think there's a southern accent that's prevalent there for sure, but it's a transplant city now, so maybe not everyone.
Right. All right, so you're born in Atlanta. Family? Mom, dad?
Pretty small family, close with my grandparents, brother, mother, father, all that, but all, I guess, a little distant these days with the New York City versus Atlanta and not going back and forth that often.
Yeah. But what I'm fascinated is, like, how does a kid born in Atlanta, Georgia become, like, a big, huge, fancy, schmancy photog in New York City? I love it. So we have to, I'd say you have one brother, right? Is that the whole family? Your mom, dad, and your brother?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty direct segue. My mother was basically that girl my whole life. She looked like Marlo Thomas and dressed like Marlo Thomas and was very much a fashion victim. And then, just to put it out there, my brother adopted that and was gay and was very much the direct connection to the fashion world for me. So I think that led to my having interest in. And then from my high school years and fashion interest, I became a fashion editor in some smaller magazines in Atlanta, and that led me to fashion photography in New York.
All right, but that's a quick story. But we have to, the whole time you're talking, I'm like, but wait, okay, so your brother, I'm like, wait, okay, so your mom was, you say fashion victim, so you mean she was just a slave to fashion, or did she dress, I mean, that girl was associated with being a very well-dressed person, right?
Yeah, I would say that, I mean, fashion victim in the Georgia sense. I mean, in my opinion, she looked exactly like Marlo Thomas and that girl. And the timing was just right on that. We'd see her on TV, and then I'd see my mom in the same outfit. So, go-go boots and mini skirts and the fall. I loved my mom's fall.
Did she always dress? Was she always dressed to a T? Like, she would never go out in her pajamas or anything?
Yeah, I would say she was always dressed to a T until... moving forward or cutting forward a little bit, she got stuck in the Stevie Nicks era. After Marlo Thomas, she went into long skirts and the perm and the layers and leather and fringe, and that's where she is today. So she went from, I don't know who she was before that girl, but she segued into Stevie Nicks.
And she was like, all right, I've arrived.
Right, that's it.
I have found my fashion soulmate, and it's Stevie Nicks, and I'm not changing. It's hilarious. Okay, so you say that very easily, like, okay, so you'll put it out there now that your brother's gay. So he wasn't, when did he come out? Like, I'm always fascinated at what age and how the family handles when somebody comes out, because back then it wasn't...
Yeah, and we had moved... in my younger days, we lived in the nicer part of Atlanta. Then my parents decided to sort of chuck everything and move to the farm, like Green Acres or something, another 70s reference. So we moved to very deep South Georgia, Ellenwood, Georgia, Stockbridge, Georgia. We're kind of on the border of both, and went to high school in a very small southern town. So I think probably my brother, my mother, and I knew my brother was gay probably by 10, 11, 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Him being that age, he was 2 years older than me. So I actually remember specifically watching the Academy Awards when we were probably 13 or 14, and someone that was outwardly gay won an award, and my mother made it a point to repeat over and over, he's gay and he won the award. See, it's wonderful that he's gay and he won the award. Knowing, I think, that my brother was gay and sort of doing things like that to sort of let him know it was okay to be that, even though he when I say we knew at that age, we knew sort of subconsciously. We didn't know until probably maybe his first year in college. he knew and started to sort of subconsciously let it out a little. But I think it was my first year in college, so it would have been his third year that I came back to Atlanta from Georgia Southern, and he had invited me out to go drinking at the hottest bar, which just happened to be a gay bar, and I think that was sort of
how he let you know.
Yeah.
See, that's so. Moms are amazing. Like, it's crazy and kooky as they can be sometimes. Mickey Boardman from Paper Magazine, I interviewed him, and he said that one day he was sitting in the car, and his brother was like a total jock. And Mickey Boardman, for everybody, if you didn't hear his podcast, he's very slim. I mean, he has big, huge glasses. I think he carries purses. He's very out there. But he said that he was sitting in the car, and there was a football player in high school, and he said it was him, his brother, and his mom, and he said, "Oh, so-and-so's cute." And the brother was like, "What are you talking about?" And the mother was like, "Yes, he is very cute." It was like the mother still saved him. She didn't want him to get, like, tortured by the football players.
Yeah, no, I would say my mother is as eccentric, and I have all the same, not complaints, the same amusing stories and elements to deal with regard to my mother, but she was certainly wonderful in that regard. I remember more than a few instances that Academy Awards show just happened to be one of them, but there were a few others, and she was great about that.
They're funny. It's funny because whenever I hear people talk about their moms, like, it's always a complicated relationship, obviously. But even Charlie O'Connell, when I did him, his mom, he had dyslexia. So he had a really hard time academically, so she got him into fencing. And he became a really good fencer, and he got into NYU because of fencing.
Really?
And I was like, that mother's like, as bad of a rap, and believe me, everybody has every right to have every feeling they want about their mums, because you need to, like, I feel like you have to get mad at your mom in order to mature, otherwise you just stay a baby all your life. But there are some cool stories where mothers, as kooky as they can be, it's like you catch them on a moment where they, like, do something where they're like, I try, I'm fallible because I'm a human, but there are moments where I really, and I don't know, they make it up as they go, I think.
Yeah, I remember being at the Little League tryouts, and I think in the first 5 minutes, my brother got hit with a baseball in the eye and just left crying, and my mother was sat on the bleachers watching me play, holding him, and just being wonderful about it. And I'm, in that small southern town, you would have been embarrassed about that. He would have been embarrassed, she would have been embarrassed, but she sat there with him, and it's I guess sort of a wonderful, painful memory, that and those like them. It's interesting on that subject, though. He ended up as the high school valedictorian. He was the Stockbridge High School Man of the Year. Like, everybody knew he was gay in the school, and I'm talking about Molly Hatchet loving, Leonard Skinner loving, truck driving people, and yet he ended up being the most popular person there. So it was, my mother did something right with regard to that, I guess.
Yeah, she put into him a feeling of, like, not feeling so ashamed, because I really do. I'm like, I could go way out there with all my beliefs about, like, if you have shame, you don't attract it, but people, like, it's almost like I can associate it with when I'm on stage. If I'm really vulnerable on stage, like, meaning I haven't protected myself or I'm too open, people heckle me. Never fails. I'm like, they sniff it, they smell it. So there's something. Agree, yeah. Oh my gosh, there's something they can smell it underneath, or so it's not like, I don't think that people. It's not like to say somebody who gets abused brings it on, but there is something about perpetuating it because you carry the shame inside, so people. Because if you don't have it, then they won't even think about it. They'll go do it to somebody else.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So there's something cool about that. Now, did he dress in girls? Because this also taps into my whole belief about guys. Like, I think guys got a bad rap. I don't know where they got the idea that they had to be so macho. Because I think girls have a masculine side and men have a feminine side, and I don't know if people talk about it all the time.
We segued from my mother being a fashion victim to my brother ended up being that, and I think somehow, probably politically incorrectly, I said he was gay, so he was a fashion victim, and I didn't mean that necessarily.
I didn't hear that.
But I sort of adopted his fashion sense and ended up being, like I said, going into the fashion world before photography. But he was just fashionable. He wasn't carrying purses or looking effeminate in any way. I think probably the first 10, 15 years of my fashion career, though, it was just assumed that I was gay because, there's no such thing as a fashion editor or a stylist that's straight. So
I feel like that with hair, guys who cut hair. Like, why can't a straight guy cut hair? They're like automatically. But wait a minute, but go back to that, because you thought that I meant that the feminine side was because of the way he dressed, and I was talking about the fact that your mother let him have his sensitive side, that he was crying, and I don't necessarily think that only gay guys have a sensitive side where they could cry because they got hit by a baseball bat. I don't know what age they have to stop at that, where their fathers and the grandfathers and everybody say, all right, toughen it up.
That's funny. There's a lot of stuff that happened later in my life that made me realize that tough guys do cry all the time, but you're right, though. There's a younger age, and I don't know what that is, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you're crying on the baseball field, then you're a pussy, or like that's just the bottom line. Teenagers, I don't know. You get into high school and college, and especially in the pros, if you lose the championship game of the Super Bowl, those guys cry like babies, and it's like just accepted. So I think there's a time period in between that it's, it transitions into being okay. And maybe it's the intensity of the moment that makes it okay. I don't know. Or
that losing and winning or being at that level is so macho in and of itself. Like, look at Tom Brady. I mean, the Patriots, like, Boston is like the most macho, like, or whatever. And they let Tom Brady has like his hair done in a bouffant, and they like totally love him. So there's something about the masculinity. It's so far masculine, the football, so that they're allowed.
Yeah, that's right. It's funny, as you say that, I think about seeing Lance Armstrong cry at a race that he was either winning or losing. It didn't even matter. He was just so intense that he was crying about it. But if I saw someone his age wreck their bike on the street in Williamsburg and were crying, I would be like, what a pussy.
Or if your hairdresser started crying.
Because his boyfriend left him or something.
Or if he was straight and he cried, you'd be like, you can't, there's no crying in hairdressing. What are you doing? Yeah, it's just interesting, because I have a joke about it. I say, what's the joke I do? Colin Quinn told me, he's like, Sue, you gotta explore that more. You gotta explore that more. Oh, when the girls meet the guys, we're ruining the guys. We're ruining the guys, because when a girl meets a guy nowadays, all she wants to do is change him. I need you to be more sensitive. I need you to be more understanding. I need you to be more like me. Then 6 months into the relationship, something scary happens, and he's like, ah! And you're like, what are you doing? Cut it out. You wimp. Cut it out. And it's like, no, you can't have it all.
Yeah.
If you want him to be sensitive, he might get a little scared. I don't know. I'm just fascinated. I saw my nephew was playing soccer last weekend. And it was funny, because I come from inner city Boston, where we were all tough. Even the girls had to be tough. And he got hit in the face with the soccer ball. And then he got hit in the stomach, and he shook it right off. And the funny part about it is, if that happened when he was with me by himself, he would have cried. And he didn't on the field. And there was a part of me that was proud that he didn't cry on the field. And I thought, was that just because I didn't want the other kids to make fun of him?
Yeah. Well, you Boston people are tougher than most.
Well, it's funny, because when I went home, I said it, and his father was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, but was it because I was afraid the other kids would make fun of him? I think that's more what happens, because at that age, he's starting to worry now. Does he look cool? Is he cool?
How old is he?
Oh my gosh, he just turned 7. And he still has that sweet boy, but you can see it's starting to become like, am I cool? And my niece doesn't have to, like, when I was leaving, she was like, please, don't leave, crying her head off, and nobody said a word about that. It was just interesting, the way that we get socialized to be men and women, but whatever. Okay, but you were a fashion editor in high school.
Well, actually, I was the school photographer. I think that camera in my hand when I was born thing is actually almost true, but
it is.
So that started my interest in photography, and then after that I went to college for business. It ended up not being interesting and not sticking, and at that point my brother was pursuing hair. I'm trying to, how did that segue? I came back from Georgia Southern to go to Georgia State, where he was there, and he actually had become a hairdresser, and that sort of led me to fashion. I ended up being doing some styling work for some fashion people he was working for, and that was the ultimate segue. So there's really no such thing as a fashion editor in Atlanta, because there's nothing to fashion edit.
Right.
But I was doing some styling work. And
for people who don't understand what a fashion editor is, a fashion editor sets up the whole shot.
Right. Puts the clothes together, pulls the models, the photographer, everything together, from everything from Vogue magazine to the style section for the Atlanta Journal or that sort of thing. So every fashion magazine or publication has a fashion editor, if not more than one. So I was doing that for smaller companies in Atlanta.
Which is pretty much, it's creating the whole image. It's the same.
Correct.
It's just a
Correct.
broader way.
Which actually leads me to a later point that by the time I got to New York, I was so tired of putting together the entire shoot and then them hiring some photographer to come in and sort of fuck up my vision. I just decided just give me the camera, I'll do it myself. So that was the ultimate.
Now, did you take pictures when you were younger, though? Because I think a lot of people love the idea with Instagram and everything. They love the idea. And I can see some people, like my friend from Boston, she has a great eye for taking, like, portrait pictures. Like, she just takes them, naturally. But I'm like, wow, what is that? That's a certain eye that somebody has that I don't have. I don't have that eye to be able to take. So did you take pictures when you were younger? Did you love it? Did you?
Yeah. I mean, I think, like I said, in high school I did and was the school photographer. So there was a birth in there somewhere. And in that time period, there was no iPhone or digital, so everything had to be printed in a dark room, and if you were serious about it, it was a lot bigger commitment than it is these days.
And did you like the idea of the printing it out in that process, or did you like the idea of capturing the moment in time through the way that you saw it?
It was strictly that. The latter is true. I had no interest in the technical details of the dark room, and that sort of thing is for tech geeks and people that are obsessive about things that I'm not obsessive about. So it's capturing the moment, the heat of the moment, and the state of mind or someone's personality is what's interesting to me.
And then still having that process, same thing, talk to a singer, talk to a comedian, talk to anybody, the idea of, so if you don't do the darkroom stuff, the technical stuff, you have to hope that they still bring can they screw up the image from what you take to what comes out if they're not good at it? Like, do you have to find a relationship with somebody that you can trust to do that, or?
In those days, yes. I mean, I did a lot of it myself, but it was not pleasurable to me. It was just a matter of fact. You just had to do it once you shot the image. If you're on a budget, you had to process it and print it. These days, that's a little less important. I mean, in the big budget world of advertising, then often your image can become something else because someone in the digital darkroom changes it to the degree that it doesn't look like yours anymore. But for the most part, that doesn't happen often, and in fact, with most of my work, I take it from start to finish. So the retouching and final everything is mine.
We're on like an energetic wavelength right now, because the whole time you were talking, I was thinking I got to ask him about retouching and photoshopping and how he feels, and then you said it, and I'm like, ooh, yeah. So I want to, because I'm total like the photoshopping and the retouching that goes on, and I don't know, does it go on with men as much as it does with the women? Because it's insane what they do with women, like on the covers of magazines and stuff, and how they make them so skinny, and it's crazy that we allow it or that we accept it. Or...
It is crazy, but I believe the industry is reverting back to keeping it real to a certain degree in the past maybe year, and I think we'll see it go in that direction for the next few years. I think there was a time when I remember Elle magazine did a cover that was the fake woman, where they took like 5 different parts of the different models' faces and created one face. And that was, but they did it in context of this is what we're doing.
And they let people know.
Saying that's what we were doing. But that was at the point, I think, that we were at a place where it was going too far, and everybody knew it was going too far. I have a little bit more of a real vision, because I started with the New York Times, and they don't allow any retouching of any sort with regard to no retouching at all in the New York Times. So for me, as much as I want to compete with other big photographers on the same level, I have a little bit of a keep it real sort of state of mind, because I have to for the Times. But then when I shoot for other publications, I see the difference. And because the Times is a journal, and they're committed
factual. It has to be factual, right?
So there's that.
But I think longevity-wise, it's probably something cool, because you're still working a muscle and creating something that'll stand the test of time, as opposed to them having to switch from taking pictures of people that they can easily Photoshop.
No, agreed. I agreed. It has made me work harder and step up, because I know that everybody else that's photographing, say, for example, Padma Lakshmi or the Currans or whatever, then when they shoot them, they're going to be retouched, and it's going to look different, and not necessarily better, but different. And so I keep that in mind when I'm shooting anyone. So the light has to be more perfect, and the details have to be more real. And
But you also have to capture their essence more. It's harder to find somebody's essence and be a good photographer to find out what's going on inside of them as opposed to knowing. It's the same thing I say about life. Everything in life is too fast now, and the humanity of everything's getting lost. It's like they take a quick picture and they're like, don't worry, we can Photoshop it and make it not even look like the person. Then you're getting rid of the whole craft of photography. It's like, what are we going to have left? Nothing. Just a whole bunch of empty people running around trying to get something that's not even reachable. It's crazy to me. Like, I would never do that. It's never been my thing. Like, I wouldn't let people really retouch me or anything because I would be so afraid of the fear I would have to live in every other day. If you did a picture of me that was photoshopped and then you saw me in real life, what are they going to say? Oh, you have wrinkles or whatever. I'd rather you be like, yeah, I laugh a lot. I don't know. I'd rather have the confidence to just... Because to me, it would create my own insecurities, is what I'm saying. I would be exhausted all the time.
I've seen some pretty hot photos of you, though.
Yeah, thank you. And I haven't, nothing. Sometimes I don't even have makeup on, but I will say that I think it's because of everything that I have is natural. I work out, but I think it's an energy thing.
Yeah.
Like, even when I'm on TV sometimes, like, I was on Artie Lang's show and I did my own makeup, and I was like, oh.
Really?
Yeah.
Did your own makeup.
I don't even know how to do makeup either. If I showed you my makeup drawer, you would laugh. It's like all over the place. Like, I'm not a makeup person. So there's something about the essence that maybe I do know what I'm talking about in terms of not having to be so from the outside in. Because if you told me, Sue, your pictures are horrible, you'd be like, look, we have to talk when we shut the microphone off. I have to talk to you because they're horrible.
You know, it's interesting, though, the segue, or reverting back a little bit, I think my first beauty portrait that I did for, I think Cynthia Raleigh was doing a cosmetics campaign, and yeah, that was it. I remember specifically being at 528 Broadway and going to see the final product after we shot it. It was a huge production, and it was a close-up of the makeup and a beauty-related ad campaign, and I went in to see, and the retoucher had it on a huge screen, and I was just, I almost, relevant to our earlier conversation, broke down and started crying because the details, the imperfections in the photo were just horrific, and I was like, oh my God, I have blown my first big ad campaign. And then he clicked to the retouch version, and I was like, wow, I had no idea that kind of thing went on. It was the first time I had seen that, and I felt a little bit of like what you were talking about. I felt like I lacked a little bit of integrity. Am I not perfect? And this was, probably 15 years ago, before Herb Ritts died, and the same retoucher was working on Amber Valletta for a cover of maybe Vogue for that Herb had shot, and it was right next to mine. And he said, take a look at this, and he showed me the before and after, and it was worse and better than mine was worse and better.
So it was the same thing, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was validating for me, and a little bit of a slap in the face at the same time. It was hard to see, but when you see one of the best photographers in the world, one of the old masters, sort of having the same applications applied to his work, it's like, this is just the nature of the industry. There's nothing you can do about it.
And to be honest, like, of course, everybody doesn't have close-up pictures of their face all the time, so maybe there is a little bit of
like a microscope on her skin, on the pores,
Yes, it needs to go on a little bit. But in terms of, like, overall, every day it being a necessity, I'm glad it's going back.
Right,
because I feel like it's causing...
I think the makeup campaign is it's set in stone for the next decade or so, that it is going to be retouched in that regard. But portraits, and I think anything from Vanity Fair to recent Vogue covers, it's different now. They're not skinnying people up in the way they used to.
Even the makeup stuff, like, I've been thinking about, I'm like, we paint our faces. I'm like, it's kind of weird. I'm like, it's weird that we paint our faces. I'm like, what if we never did? Like, that would be what would be the ideal beauty, if we just didn't paint our faces, but then they wouldn't make money. I was at my niece's communion last week, and they were all, can you French braid my hair? Can you put makeup on me?
Wait, where is this? Where?
In Foxborough, up in Boston.
Okay.
And so I was like, oh, I'll put the makeup on them. And now what I don't even know what nationality, my sister's husband's brother's wife, I don't even know how that is related to me, but her kids, they have darker olive skin. I'm not sure what it is, but she started to notice it with the makeup as soon as we started putting the makeup on. It was just very and I was also very aware. I'm like, I don't want to teach them that they need makeup. But also, they live in a world where we wear makeup. I'm not going to be like, grunchy granola Wolverine toenail lady that's going to be telling them not to do, you know. So as we were putting it on, I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing, you guys? We're accentuating the positive. We're not covering the negative. We're accentuating the positive. And they were laughing, but they got it. I thought, what a good message to give them. That we're accentuating the positive. And the little girl was like, well, my skin's darker, so you can't see it. And I didn't even make a big deal out of it. I just put a little more like light blue on her eyes and moved on from it. And I thought, wow. They're like, two of them were like 4 or 5, and then my niece is 8.
What age is communion? I'm from Georgia, where there's no...
She's going to be 9, so she's 8. Communion is 8. And she's definitely at that age where she's becoming like a preteen. A tween, they call it. And of course, they want to emulate. They like Auntie Sue, they want to emulate what we do. We wear makeup, so they do want to do that. I just thought it was funny. I'd never been faced with that, like... I don't want to teach them that they have to wear makeup.
You know, this is off the subject a little bit, but I went to my first communion. One of my, the kids I photographed, I became friends with the family, and I went to the first communion, and this was in Queens, and never been to one before, and the mom shows up, and she's hot, for sure. She shows up in a really tight dress with lots of cleavage, and I was like, let me just think about this at communion at church. So we go in the church, and there's like 100 other ladies with her in tighter dresses with cleavage everywhere. I'm like, I like communions in Queens. It's beautiful.
Yeah, see what I mean? So how am I ever going to tell them not to wear makeup? You can't. It's like, they're not my kids. So I said, accentuate the positive, and it sounds like that lady and her friends were accentuating the positive. They had good boobs. They were letting them all hang on. I know, it's crazy. People are crazy. But that's what I mean. You can't, like, solve the world, but you can find a way to, like, I don't know, that's what I've always, I wish I could be a photographer. I wish I could capture what I see, what I feel, and how I see the world, but I can't. But I mean, it can't be everything, you know. But I was going to ask you, since we got into the retouching and taking pictures and insecurities and nervousness, and well, let's talk about when you took the picture of Michelle Obama. People don't know that everybody doesn't know that you took the picture. But now they got it, because
everybody knows that I am even slightly in contact with. I try to let everybody in the world know.
Well, now everybody. Lee took the president's wife, the first lady's picture in the White House, right?
Yeah. I've been promoting that with ferocity for some time now. It's my proudest moment, for sure.
It's a big deal.
It was a turning point for me, for sure. I feel like with regard to... It's interesting, the earlier conversation you were having about shame, and not necessarily shame, but just confidence, so the flip side of that, I think. Going into that situation, I think every other project, every other job I've ever done, the client's needs came first, and that I wanted to please the client. Because generally, you know, I'm shooting something that's not necessarily, we always say, curing cancer or, you know, groundbreaking. It's just capturing fashion, capturing this model or that model, or as important as a portrait is for the New York Times, it's still me pleasing the Times as much as whoever I'm shooting, I want to capture their personality, but I want to capture it in the way the Times wants me to capture it. So that's the bottom line. But going into the White House, and as much as I respect the history of the integrity of the White House and the office of the President and First Lady, that was the first time I decided this is my shoot from start to finish, and I'm going to please the client, but I'm going to get what I want from it first. I want to get what Michelle wants. I want to get exactly what I want from the shoot. So the details leading up to that were so different than any other job I've ever done, because every time I heard no, it was, you're going to say yes to what I'm asking you for in the long run, so you might as well just say yes now. So whether it was how much equipment we could bring in, or how many people on my team, or where we stayed, or how we flew to, or how we handled the details of the lighting, it was all my call, and it all came out my way in the end, but I had to fight really hard for it, and it was an interesting turning point. From that shoot, I've changed the way I play the game. Every shoot is now my shoot, and I do things my way, and my work has stepped up 10 times what it was before then, and I think, just like I said, I went into that shoot not only with all the professional elements in play. I wanted to feel the patriotism of going to the White House and shooting the First Lady, and that's hard you don't get that in New York so often. It's the least American city in America, in my opinion, as far as representing what the rest of the country's about. And you get lost in the fashion world here in Times Square and the parties and restaurants and that kind of thing. So returning to sort of my Georgia state of mind and going to the White House with this sense of I love being an American and love interacting with the First Lady, that was great to me.
Okay, so I have like 50,000 questions from what you just said. First of all, this is what I've been saying to people about artists, like to find yourself, and it takes years and years. How long have you been taking pictures, honestly?
I started late. I was frustrated with myself because I enjoyed being a fashion editor. So probably 10 years I've been taking pictures, and before that I was in the industry for another 8 or 9. So
okay, so for you to find, like now you're like getting the ball, you're like 16, getting the balls to be years, like that's my game. Like it takes that long for you to find out. I remember watching the documentary about Pollock, Jackson Pollock. Like he didn't do those drippings until years and years into his career because it was when and it was like a spiritual thing in a way where he felt like he just did what he felt. And that's what you're saying. And it's funny that it was something so strict and so rigid that made you find. But I bet you, I was going to ask you, how did you become the photographer that took her picture? Like that had to be a big deal too. They probably trust your confidence. That's what people are looking. If you're going to be hired for a job, if I had somebody come in to design my apartment and they didn't tell me what to do, they wanted to know what I did. Well, what the heck do I need them for?
I think the company Bonnier that hired me for it probably had 1,000 photographers to choose from, but every shoot I had done for them leading up to that was perfect. I take every single job I do as the most important job. The White House notwithstanding, that was obviously the most important job. But that's how I
everybody else understands that, though. I think everybody else can.
That's how I approach every job, though. Even if it's a small project, I go into the day before. This is the most important job, of the week, of the month, but that one of all time. But that state of mind sort of helps me get to a place where I'm doing my absolute best work for everything that comes up. And I think the people at Bonnier who are just great to work with, and a little bit of the anti-Condé Nast, in that they run all the magazines that Condé Nast doesn't run or own. So that was...
Which magazine was it for?
It was for Parenting magazine, but they filtered it through some others. And I think... That approach, and then coupled with my status with the New York Times, was probably the deciding factor, the what put me over the edge with regard to getting that particular project.
And do you want to tell us, did you meet her before? Did you meet her there? Or?
I did, and that's my favorite part of...
Oh, good. We really are on a thing here.
I'll tell you, the security details leading up to getting into the White House and getting my team in, weeks before they were, background checking us, and I noticed when I tracked my website, which I do regularly, the Office of the President was tracking my website for the 3 weeks leading up to my going in. So every single day, the Office of the President was noted as tracking my website, and I thought that was interesting. So I screenshot it every day and kept and kind of loved
that. You're like, listen, I don't even care. Forget my coolness. Forget everything. It's all going out the window with this one.
So I kept thinking, they're going to find something. Because I have a friend that used to work for the Secret Service, and he told me anything you've ever done, they're going to find before you go in. So even the night before in the hotel, I was up late thinking... I wasn't nervous about the shoot. I wasn't nervous about meeting her, and I wasn't nervous about accomplishing what I needed to. I was nervous about the Secret Service finding some shit in my background and not letting me in.
Anticipation. Anybody can identify with the anticipation of wanting to do something the night before, and then to have that be a real possibility. Most people are like, oh, I hope it works out. I hope nothing happens. But you really had, if something happened, you weren't going.
Until the point I was going through the gate at the White House, I was sure that the Secret Service was going to stop me, and I was going to have to hand my camera off to my assistant or something.
Which is cool, too, because if you went in there too egomaniac, too, it wouldn't have worked either. You still had the humility of, the fear and the respect.
It was strictly that, and I have to stress that because I've done several interviews about the White House shoot leading up to, and every time they kept asking me, surely you got nervous before, you got nervous just before you met her, or when you met her. And the bottom line is, I did not. The enthusiasm of shooting her was so strong, so overpowering that there was no room for anything else. And that's
and thank God, because if you were taking my picture, I don't want you to be nervous. I want you to take my picture and make me look good.
So, to your original question, I'm Well, we got rained out. First of all, we were supposed to shoot in the south lawn in the garden, and at the last minute, I'm like, okay, let's do the indoor picnic. That's what we'll do, because we had some local kids in the shoot as well, and everybody's at a loss for an idea, and they're like, that's perfect, that's a great idea, let's do the indoor picnic. So we're standing in the state dining room getting ready to meet her and do the portrait shoot that was before the picnic, and so her secretary had told us there's probably 30 of us there. She announced over and over, you can only call her Mrs. Obama. Do not call her the First Lady. Do not call her Michelle. Only Mrs. Obama, leading up to, she said it probably 20 times. And then, and with such seriousness. And so before she came in, probably 30 minutes before, the Secret Service guy would come in, and he'd say 30 minutes to the First Lady, and then he'd come in 15 minutes to the First Lady. And they literally did 30 seconds to the First Lady. And then we're all standing in a line ready to meet her like soldiers, and he says, ladies and gentlemen, the First Lady of the United States, and she comes in very regal but very calm and casual, not intimidating in a way that's you expect her to be if you've ever seen her on TV. She's exactly who she is. She's regal and yet friendly and likable and personable at the same time. So they introduce her to the president of the company, who's standing right next to me. And we're behind at the time. It's time for the shoot to start. So then the president introduces her to me, and the secretary that told us not to call her anything but Mrs. Obama is there. And Michelle says, Lee, I've heard so much about you. Call me Michelle. Aww. And sticks her hand out to shake mine, and I cut my eyes to the secretary who told us not to call her Michelle. And I think to myself really quickly, she's your boss, so nice to meet you, Michelle. And so I called her Michelle the rest of the time, even though the lady said not.
But see how brilliant she is, too, because as the whole time you were telling me that the person was saying and all that, the one thing that they put out there a lot is that they don't like all that.
Exactly.
They want us to be very accessible. And so she probably knows, if I do that with him, then he's not going to be comfortable to take my picture. Like, that's how sophisticated she is.
No, I agree. She totally thought that through, and Call Me Michelle was like, we're on the right terms for you to be able to direct me, and she even said, and I have it on video, I made sure my assistants were running the video as we were setting up, and I said to her, I have a certain look I need from you, and we have talked about this a good bit, so I feel like I need to be able to, and she said, oh, Lee, it cut me off, direct me, feel free to direct me, you know what you want better than I know what you want, so whatever you need, just feel free to direct me. And I cut my eyes to the camera, I'm like, did you guys get that on camera?
We should make a cartoon about you with the First Lady, everything that you were like taking pictures of.
Like, no fucking way. The First Lady just said to direct her in her home in the White House. Did you guys get that on camera? You better have. So.
But of course she did, because the one thing that people don't understand is like, okay, so that person saying, call her this, call her that, it's like, you have all these people around you when you're in the position. I mean, I've never been the First Lady, but I've been the person who has all the people around me. And I never realized how much they can affect what goes on. Like, I got rid of all those people around me so that I can affect my own outcome, which was really hard to do in the beginning. But now I enjoy it very much, because those people would put so much, because they want their job, they want to feel important, they have all this stuff that they're bringing to the table that has nothing to do with the actual person.
Yeah.
And it's her image coming out through that camera. So if this person says that to you, it makes you all nervous, and Michelle doesn't take care of it, it's like there is a big responsibility in being the person that people are taking the picture of, and they're human.
Yeah.
If you're going to take my picture, I remember when Clay McBride took my picture, that picture on my website. I met him literally. I was walking down the street, and he came up to me, and he was like, "I would like to take your picture. I think you're one of the most fascinating women I've ever seen in my life," or something like that. And he gave me his card, and I was like, "All right, you fucking weirdo." I put the thing in my pocket. I was like, "What a crazy guy!" And I went home and I Googled him, Clay Patrick McBride. He does all Kid Rock's, the covers of Kid Rock's albums. And he's like, Sue, I'm doing this series, I want to do a picture. And I was like, all right. So he was doing it in an alleyway in the East Village. And I didn't have any publicist or agent or anything. And I went down, and I remember I was very, 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 very nervous walking in. And then I walked in. He took like 4 shots. It's like one of the best shots of my personality ever. And he told, the people who were before me were big famous people coming in. And the publicists were being nasty. And they were doing, and I was thinking, oh my God, I never even knew that went on. Like, that I could have a publicist that was being nasty to the guy that was going to take my picture. And I was like, I had to hire a publicist and all these people to prop me up because I couldn't handle that one moment of being afraid. It was just interesting that, so the picture came out pure because there was nothing interrupting me and him.
Yeah, no, generally I find publicists to be just a nuisance, or at least I feel like that's changing a little bit. It might be with regard to my status changing a little bit.
That's what I'm speaking to. You have to be you're the artist.
Yeah.
We want you to be the artist. That person telling you what to call people, they're not the artist.
Yeah.
We want to see your pictures, and Michelle Obama wants to look the best that she can look, and for you to capture her essence.
Yeah.
It's cool. You did a good job, is what I'm saying. Because you got to hold on to yourself. That's what, as an artist, you have to have all this excitement and everything, but still hold on to yourself so that you have some sort of vision that you're going to put out there. I always think of it like, I don't play basketball, but I think like I started learning in boxers. I started learning, I was like, oh, they're under so much stress with all those crowds and everything, but they have to keep their body loose and they have to stay focused and get done what they need to get done.
It's a mental game.
It is a mental game. All it is a mental game. It's crazy.
That's a Kobe, like that tone, though. It's a quote from Kobe Bryant doing an interview with this guy that was so nervous that they couldn't even come up with a question. He's like, dude, get it together. It's a mental game.
But it really, I mean, I'm like, really all it is, all of life, all of success, all of everything is learning how to like pull in on yourself, control your impulses, and trust, and be the one that makes a decision. That's the other thing, is that you have to take the risk, like, then you can't, because I always feel like if you didn't completely go all the way with the Michelle Obama thing, then part of it would be you could blame somebody else. But when you take full responsibility and say, no, I'm the boss, this is the decision, then you have to take the risk and be like, it's my mistake if I make it too, but...
Yeah, no, those two go together. In those interviews that I mentioned, that was something that came from that as well, that there is no blaming anyone else. When you're the one in charge, doesn't matter who fucks up to a minimal degree, it's your fuck up in the end, because blaming someone else is useless, and everyone will find that sooner or later if they don't.
Then you'll never work, or you'll never be clear with your art. Like, even if you make a mistake, let it be a clear mistake. That's at least which brings us back to the whole touching up and the whole thing. It's like, at least be something. That's what I feel like in my life. At least I'm going to be something. Like, when people are like, oh, you think that? I'm like, yeah. Like, even like being nice to people, I'm like, yeah, I like to, that's what I usually do. I don't even think that other people necessarily have to do it, but I'm like, you better make room for me to be able to do what I want too. Like, I don't care what you do, but you shouldn't have to like yell at me for what I do either. And they have to believe in something, right? I mean, everybody else gets to do what you, I mean, you've taken pictures of my friends. You've taken pictures of Lisa Lampanelli. She does what she wants.
Yeah, right? She was really wonderful, by the way. I forgot to. Did we even talk about that? She was so great.
I don't know if we ever talked about it.
She was so great.
But she's a good girl. She's my buddy. But she does what she wants, right? Look at her career.
Yeah. I did, it's interesting. A lot of times with the Times, it puts someone on my radar. As much as I'd seen her and I knew she was funny, she wasn't front and center on my radar, and I've followed her since and think the world of her and think she's so funny. But I could see you two being friends. That's certainly the same sense of humor. And
Kristen Johnson, you took her too. She's my buddy.
Kristen's a little, I totally the same. You guys have a similar sense of humor. She's a little darker than you, though, yes. Right? She's a little more bitter seeming, not bitter seeming.
She's a little more out there than me with her, yeah.
But you do have the same sense of humor, I think. But you're a little, I guess she's smiley too, right? On a general level. Like, I wonder, when I see you, we're always in a group. Are you smiley and friendly to everybody on the street like you are generally? All
the time. Like, if somebody followed me with a camera, they would be like, oh, Sue does that with everybody. All the time.
Being a Southerner, I've always said I never want to be a New Yorker, and I wonder, I find New Yorkers friendly if you initiate it every time, whether it's the Korean deli store guy or the taxi driver or some stranger on the subway. They will be friendly to you if you're friendly first, but that gets old sometimes when you always have to be the first one, right?
Well, you don't have to be. It's just who I am. Like, that's what I've realized. It's just who I am. I just naturally am. I wake up in the morning and I'm like silly.
You are, well, so because you're a performer, so that's you in front of the camera. And me, as someone behind the camera, I'm not necessarily that. Sometimes I'm internal. I have my own thoughts, and I'm not outwardly friendly. I'm just focused on whatever's going on in my mind.
Which I think is awesome too. Like, I don't think that everybody should be me. Do you see what I mean? Like, that's who I am. But I've always been since I was a little kid. There was a guy at Savin Hill train station. He was the grumpiest guy I've ever seen, and I made it my mission. I was like, I am going to make that guy smile. And every day I'd be like, hi, and he would just give me the dirtiest look, and then one day I went up there and I heard a click. He put his foot on the thing, released the turnstile, and let me in for free. And then I rode for free all the time, and I wasn't looking for that.
See, I like that, but I don't have my energy's internal, so I would just hate that guy.
Yeah.
Right? There's that guy. I hate him. I hate you on purpose.
Yeah, I don't know what I've always wanted to, like, I brought a homeless lady home on Thanksgiving one time. She had no shoes. I was working at the corner store. And I was like, I'll bring her home and make my mother give her her shoes. Not because I thought my mother would be like, oh, let's give her my shoes. Because my mother would be like, get the homeless lady out of my house on Thanksgiving. I've just always been like that. And I used to have a lot of shame over that. I used to be like, oh, because people would be like, everybody's not like you, Sue. And I would get ashamed. And it wasn't when I was trying to make them be that way. It was just when I was just expressing my own self. So I've gotten a lot more confidence in terms of being, there's room for me too. I am that person who talks to everybody and helps people carry their stuff. Last week I helped old lady had a carriage, and I was like, oh, I'm going to help her carry it up the stairs. It's the train station. And I literally almost threw my back on. I'm like, what do you have in here? She was laughing.
But that stuff I'll do. The people that clearly, like if you see someone with a baby carriage, a mom trying to get her up the subway, like if she's taking the subway, she's already having a miserable day carrying her baby in a carriage. So I always carry them up. And usually I'm annoyed when I start. I'm like, I'm going to help her carry it up. But by the time I get to the top of the stairs, I feel better. Like I feel like this is a better day because I did that. But it's what I was talking about. You always have to make the effort to get there in New York City, whereas in Georgia, it's different. People are just friendly to you, or so I'd like to sort of fantasy imagine, I guess.
Yeah, people in the buildings in New York don't talk to each other.
I know.
I wonder what people elsewhere would think of that.
That totally perplexes me. I've in probably 3 buildings I've lived in New York, I don't know one neighbor. Just pass someone in the hallway, they don't even speak to you?
Don't even look at you.
I know. And I would scratch my head. It would happen hundreds of times over the years, and every time I was still sort of dismayed by it. I'm like, what the just happened? That guy just walked past me and didn't even say hello. And now it's at a point where if you do like meet someone in a hallway, some random place, you're like, oh, he must be from out of town because he said hello.
Right.
I totally
and believe me, I'm not like, I know, I read people. I am a performer in that sense. Like, I'm not, if somebody doesn't want to say hi to me, I'm not like, hey, hi, all the time. I'm like, yeah, I get it, dude. It's fine. You can be whoever you want to be. Yeah, I totally respect it. All right, so we have a few more minutes here. You don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but I want to know, do you have a story about the most awkward picture you ever had to take? And you don't have to say who it was or anything. I just like, because I like to reveal to people that everything isn't always like perfect, that people struggle. And so, was there a moment where it was really awkward or?
Yeah, there's probably a few, but I think the one that comes to mind, and I don't even mind saying out loud, I don't think there's any negativity here. It's just a expectation versus style of work. But years ago, I had 48 hours in the studio with Elton John and thinking this is going to be the most amazing event ever. And in fact, it was pretty amazing. But both days he showed up in a warm-up suit, and he was going through the bad hair days at the time, so he had what looked like a bad wig on with like a bowl cut, and but I'm talking about a nylon warm-up suit, because when he's in the studio, that's how he works, right. And that's fine. Mm-hmm. But I had prepared for months for Elton to come in like a bright purple Versace jacket or a duck suit or something, and I was like, what am I going to do with this? It was just,
What did you do?
I made a beautiful black and white portrait of him behind the piano, and it still stands as a favorite portrait today, but it's not of the style that I shoot now, and it was artificial light, and generally my pictures are a mixture of artificial and natural light, but shooting in a recording studio is just not my style. It's all dark and gray and no natural lighting. So sitting in the studio with a camera and watching him actually create new music was pretty amazing. So it balanced itself out. But as far as the expectations of making a great portrait of him looking fabulous, it was a buzzkill for sure.
Yeah, see, that's what people don't understand. Because that's what leads me to one of my last questions, which is, Okay, so what's your technique? I don't even know if you're conscious of it or not, or it might be just natural inside of you. But what's your technique for, like say you're going to take my picture and I'm a neurotic, crazy, like everything, like do this, do that, do this, you can fix that. Like if I'm irrational about my fear of being, if I'm too nervous, what is your, do you joke? Do you tell me to stop it? Do you?
No, I think that's a two-part question in that I feel like with the history of shooting celebrities for the Times specifically, I have become their go-to person for anyone that doesn't want to be photographed, and Condé Nast has kind of found me to be that too. So anyone who's uncomfortable being photographed ends up landing on my calendar for some reason. They just think that I'm good with relaxing people that don't enjoy the process, I suppose, and I am. But I think that comes from, number one, if I'm actually shooting a celebrity of almost any status, maybe the First Lady is an exception, but in my head, I'm already a celebrity, and I'm not there yet. I'm getting there. I want to be the superstar number one photographer in the world, which in my mind equals the validity or the status of a celebrity. So that's part of it. My head is in the same place. And then if you're talking about someone that is a little neurotic and doesn't want to be photographed or doesn't feel comfortable being photographed, then that's a little bit of a different thing, but I have the same approach in that I just sort of become more and more reserved, and it becomes such a calming state of mind or experience for someone like yourself, if that's who you say you are.
No, that's not who I am. I'm just saying if it was.
But someone of that neurotic state of mind, then instead of trying to calm them with some sort of joke or nonsense, it's just, I think my confidence comes out, and just being the calm, reserved photographer that I am behind the camera, it lets them know that we're going to get exactly what we want to get here, and we're going to work together to get it. And it's a body language and a state of mind, not necessarily a formula that can be expressed or written down, I think.
But that's brilliant.
It's
a mental game.
And it's innate. Yeah, it's innate, though. It's not something that I think about necessarily. It just is. Anytime a stressful situation comes my way, I revert to some internal strength. And
can you associate that at all with anything from your childhood? Like, because I have a friend who works on famous people's clothes, like in serious, tense situations, like right about before they go on or whatever. And she's good at it because she's learned how to take something that she learned from her childhood to be able to like put it forward.
Interesting. I don't have an answer for that, except that I know probably my brother has been the biggest influence in my approach to life in general, and my career, my work. But I don't have anything that I can enunciate as far as where it came from. I probably will 10 years from now, but at this point, it's a little the subconscious is not come forth yet. I'm just not sure what the formula is.
Well, and that's what we do. That's what you do when you're a stand-up and the crowd is crazy. You'd think that the thing to do is to yell and to tell them stop it. No, you just be completely quiet. And it's confidence to be able to stand still and be like, it's just really cool. You're like, I'm the boss. And you don't even have to say I'm the boss. You just be the boss.
Yeah, no, that's definitely right.
I'll tell you one story about me getting my picture taken for, what was it, Elle magazine? It's not around anymore, right?
Yeah, no, Elle's
not Elle. One of the magazines that's not around anymore. But they were doing 5 female comics. And they had me in this I show up and the girl's like, the stylist, Sue Costello, put this dress on because you're the only one fucking skinny enough to wear it. And I was like, and it was like a $12,000 Christian Dior gown. This was like in the 90s, 99 or something. And I was like, $12,000 gown. I put it on and they have me on this picnic table, walking along the picnic table. And I have no idea what I'm doing. And my manager's like, what's the matter, Sue? You didn't wear $12,000 gowns when you were growing up in Dorchester? And the guy was French, the photographer, and he was so just like yelling at me. And this is where I always win, because any situation where somebody's yelling at me, I think I pull in on myself and I just do. I get my little bit of like, I'll do what I want. I'll do what Sue Costello does. It's like my survival or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
And Jeff Ross was looking through the pictures, and he's like, look at this one's trying to be sexy, and this one's, you know. And he goes, and they open to the last page, and it's Sue Costello saying, fuck you, I'm Madonna. And I wasn't, but it was a natural, like a survival that came up. Like, I was like, I have to get this done. This is insane. Everybody's yelling at me. So, yeah, it's like there's like a humanity underneath all of it that, like, you calm down enough because you have to get it done. Yeah,
and the more tense the situation gets, the more calm and reserved I get, and that's been my go-to in any situation. And like I said, it's instinctual, but next time we talk, I'll have an answer for where it came from.
I bet you, because it's cool. Because my friend was like, she took something that might have not been good for a kid to have to survive or whatever, and turned it into something positive and created her. And you don't want to always analyze your art or whatever you do, but you do want to have like a handle on it so you can keep growing and get some confidence. There's nothing wrong with having some confidence and feeling solid and being like, oh, this is what I'm good at. I'm good at like simmering them down. Right? And then you become clearer and then you're like, that's the person I am. I got this.
Yeah.
I got this. And then guess what? The first lady says, call me Michelle.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
There's something really cool to that. All right, so Lee Clower, LeeClowerPhotography.com, is that right?
Correct.
Are you on Twitter?
I am.
Lee Clower, at
Photo.
Lee Clower.
Lee Clower Photo on Twitter.
And it's Clower, even though I'm saying Clower. And he's on Instagram as Lee Clower.
Lee Clower Photography on Instagram.
So it's Lee Clower Photo on Twitter and Lee Clower Photography on Instagram.
Correct. I couldn't have, the brilliance of making the same name just escaped me.
It's me too. I am Susie Kadoozie. I'm like, why didn't I do that?
I'm like,
sabotage.
How much brilliance does it take to know that these two are going to mesh eventually?
Career sabotage. And also he takes lots and lots and lots of photos for the Sunday Style, so look out for those because he's awesome. Thank you for sitting down with me. That was fascinating.
Thank you, Sue.
And we're over with another episode of the Kadoozie Kast.